1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Audio test. Testing one. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing. Audio check. Testing audio. Audio check. Checking audio to Zoom and the live stream. 1, 2. Testing audio. This is an audio test. Audio test to the live stream. This is a special Board of Trustees meeting. Long Beach Community College District.
Good evening and welcome to the Long Beach Community College District Board of Trustees special meeting for tonight, July 13th, 2022. We are meeting virtually tonight and we're going to call the meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. Tonight's meeting, we're using video conference technology to hold tonight's meeting in alignment with the governor's waiver and Assembly Bill 361, which updated the Brown Act regarding public meetings. Today's remote meeting meets the updated Brown Act requirements. Secretary Reese, can we do a roll call vote of the trustees?
Virginia Baxter.
Here.
Perlinda Chico.
Present.
Vivian Malauulu.
Here.
Uduak-Joe Ntuk.
Here.
And Sunny Zia.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum of the board. Moving to item 1.3 is Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask John from Cordova to lead us tonight and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Great. Thank you, President Tuck. Okay, please stand if you can. I know it's a Zoom call. Here we go. Put your right hand on your heart. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Moving now to item 1.4, land acknowledgement. Long Beach City College acknowledges our presence on traditional ancestral land of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. This land remains unceded territory. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from these territories. Long Beach Community College honors and respects the Gabrielino Tongva ancestors and their contributions to this land. Moving to item 1.5 is public comments on open agenda items. This is a total of 3 minutes per speaker for a maximum of 20 minutes per topic. Do we have any speakers on? I think we had Alan Gafford sign up to do a Zoom public comment. Alan, were you able to log on? Alan Gafford? We did receive one written public comment that was forwarded to the board for everyone's awareness. Are there any other public comments, Secretary Reese? You're on mute.
Sorry, no other comments received.
Okay, thank you. Moving into our agenda today, we have presentation 2.1. This is a 15-minute presentation with up to 25 minutes of questions and answers by board members. This is a Veteran Memorial Stadium funding option update. We had Alfred Frijo, partner with Shepard Mullen, Adam Bauer, Chief Executive Officer and President at Feldman, Rollup and Associates, Michael Boomsma, Senior Vice President, Education Facilities with Cordova Corporation, will present an update on the exploration of funding options, including proposed voter-approved bond measure to support Veterans Memorial Stadium project. There is an attached presentation on board docs for available to view, but I will turn it over to Alfred.
Yes.
Yeah.
President Ntuk and board, good evening. Alfred Frijo for the record. It's a pleasure to be with you. We have a brief presentation. Michael Boomsma and Adam Bauer are here with me. I wanted to turn to slide 3 of our presentation to briefly set the table in regards to our discussion tonight and turn it over then to Catherine Liu and the FM3 to provide a critical update to the board, which is the meat of our discussion tonight. I wanted to just take a few minutes to briefly provide some context of where we are at relative to some of the due diligence we have engaged in over the past several months. As you may remember, we had a special meeting in February to talk about the creative and alternative financing structures that might be available on a competitive bidding basis for the redevelopment of key facilities for the college as well as the stadium. In March and April, we spent some time with the bond management team and the facilities team to really think about the potential renovation of Veterans Stadium. And a key outcome of that discussion was the need for the replacement of the stadium, given the conditions, given the costing opportunities, and what might be the most cost-effective approach for the reconstruction. We had a meeting in May very recently that we proposed and discussed a strategic pivot in considering a potential ballot measure for purposes of the financing of the reconstruction of the stadium. We committed to the board that we would engage in a very deliberate process that looked into some key data and findings. We looked into the property assessment as was presented by Adam Bauer. We worked with the facilities team and Michael's team at Cordoba to look also at some of the key assumptions that went into the proposed reconstruction of the stadium. And subsequent to that, we also worked with Lou Andrews and FM3 to look at the polling. And looking at public input, as you all know, was a key component of our evaluation, should we proceed with a potential ballot measure. We committed at the outfront, given your guidance, that we would engage in a data-driven analysis of this potential approach to look to the voters for a potential ballot measure. And we've certainly done that. And so we are meeting today at the special board meeting to look at the outcome of the polling that was completed. And we'll be turning it over to Catherine Liu and her team to walk us through some of the key findings. Before we do that, I wanted to give Michael Boomsma an opportunity to also speak to the board. Michael?
Thank you, Alfred. Next slide, please. So just as an update on the market assessment, we commenced the assessment on June 14th. As a reminder that this is a 12-week process, so this will be done in September. And these findings will be the basis of the project, regardless of the delivery method. And I also wanted to foot stomp, regardless of the funding source. We knew that engaging a third party that specializes in the delivery of these types of projects would be an important part of our project success, regardless of how it was delivered. Some of the things that we're looking at are just the programming to include the different athletics programming as well as academic, how many concessions and what they should look like, things like point of sale, which are very important to the success of revenue generation, and then additional services based on what the market is currently driving in the local area, as well as what the market will be driving in the future, which is why we engage this professional. They actually have an on-site visit that's coming up the week of 7 on the 25th, so later this month. They'll be engaging with several different stakeholders, and that will help us just make sure that we're covering all of our bases, and that when and if we go forward with a stadium project, regardless of how that looks, we make sure we get it right. And with that, I'll turn it over to Adam for evaluation and polling updates. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And this is really an abbreviated version of what we've talked about before. We've looked at this as a taxable and a tax exempt transaction to allow for the private use and also the public use. And we've looked at a $19 per $100,000 tax rate. And that is below the maximum allowed for a community college district of $25 per thousand. So I won't belabor this. We went through this twice now. The one other point I'll just make is that your assessed value is very large. You have a large jurisdiction, and you have a consistent level of growth over the years, which is a positive and allows you to do some things that other colleges are not able to do because of that consistent growth. But with that, I'll get to let the other team get into the heart of the matter and ask that Catherine and FM3 pick it up from here.
Thank you very much, Adam. Will someone be displaying our slides, or should I screen share? I'm getting an error message on my screen saying that it needs to be enabled by the district.
We'll do that in 1 second.
Board members, good evening. My name is Catherine Liu, and I'm president and co-founder of the Lou Edwards Group. And my friend and colleague, John Fairbank, the co-founder of FM3 Research, will be delivering the meat of the presentation momentarily. It is thrilling for us to be here tonight, working together, our two organizations, along with others on tonight's call, successfully worked with all of you to enact Prop LB in 2016 at 65%, raising $850 million for the college. An overview on the data that you're about to hear this evening. As we all know, we're in a perfect storm nationally and in California. Though gas prices have begun to drop this week, the data does show that 2022 is not the best year to proceed with a bond, given significant voter concerns about pocketbook issues related to inflation. The viability of the bond tested begins within the margin of error with a fairly low 57% response rate for 55% requirement bond. While it does reach a high watermark of 60% midway through the study, support does flatten to 49% on the third ballot test, calling viability into question. I would like to add that a number of our agencies are facing similar results given the global war in Ukraine and these pocketbook issues. To walk us through the specifics and methodology and the next steps, I'll turn it over to Mr. Fairbank. John?
John Fairbank, nice to be with you all again. I'm going to kind of quickly go through this. I know we have a tight timeline here. The survey methodology, this survey was conducted between June 22nd and 29th. We did, the sample were likely voters who have consistent histories of voting in the 2022 November type elections, a gubernatorial, not a presidential. Our total interviews were 644. And we do what's called a dual mode survey these days. We do both telephone calls, email invitations, text invitations. We're trying to give voters a number of different options to participate. And we find voters these days want to be heard for all the items that Catherine mentioned about the condition of our economy and everything. The polling, we're down about 30% on the refusal rate. Again, telephone interviews, online interviews, both English and Spanish. We translated, give options to do this in Spanish. We also will be tracking some results from the 2015 poll that we did for you prior to the successful bond in 2016. Okay, next slide. Just kind of quickly, the mood of the Long Beach voters. Yeah, next slide. That's good. That's good. All right, this is just kind of a warm-up question, right direction, wrong track for city of Long Beach. You can see that just as many voters say the right direction is wrong track that the city's going in. This is, unfortunately, again, for the times we're in, many cities are at best even on right direction, wrong track. Most cities in LA County are more on the wrong track. We're seeing many cities in the 50, 55% wrong track. Again, for this day and age of this, Long Beach is in a little better shape with at least even. Okay, next slide. We also look for job rating. How excellent, pretty good, only fair, poor for the city, Long Beach City College. You can see that a good, to the right-hand side, I've combined excellent and pretty good, 65%, only 5% poor, pretty good job rating. The Long Beach Community College District, a little lower, a little higher. You can see the gray, the never heard of, don't know enough about to comment. So that's lower, but the college, Long Beach City College is at 2/3. And then we tested the Long Beach Unified there at the bottom and Long Beach City Government, which are, again, because of this day and age of what we're going through, are a little lower on the, especially the Long Beach City Government on the poor side.
Congratulations, college team. These are very good, excellent and good ratings, and they have remained consistent even with the tempest and the teapot we're in.
Yep. Okay, need for funding. This is a question that, again, next slide, please. This is a question, again, we've tracked a number of these questions from your December 2015 survey. This is a question that's very important to us. Ask voters whether they think the college has a great need for additional funding, some need, a little need, or no real need for additional funding. You can see in 2015, we were up at 67% with 36% great need, a good, strong item of perception of need. In this latest survey, we're down a little bit. This is not something I'm positive about, because as the need goes down, or perception of the need goes down, usually the vote's a little softer for the actual measure. You can see the don't know down here is now 22%. It was 17 in 2015. Okay, this is the 75-word legal measure that we had voters look at on email or phone. We'll ask this 3 times throughout the survey. This basically, in 75 words, helps to describe, as you see the title, safety, security, repair, and then in specific terms, kind of giving the voters a sense of what will be funded if a measure like this passes. And then we have legal language that identifies the $285 million, $19 per 100,000. And then at the end, outstanding with oversight and all funds used locally. Just try to give the voters a sense of what this is and what it's going to cost. So our initial vote on that 75 words, and I'm looking at the 75 or 5732 initially, but I want to look within that 57%, the 50% there. We'd like to see, this is 30% definitely yes, 20% probably yes, 50%. As you all know, we need 55%. And I like to see districts with the definite and probably at least over the 55. Many are into the 60%. This getting to 57, we are dependent on, in these questions, you can see I've highlighted in yellow, undecided lean yes. That's 7% were initially undecided for this measure, as the undecided lean no at 2%. But we push them a little bit. So our initial vote was 50 to 30. Then we pushed the undecideds, and that's how we got over the 55%. It's kind of a weak showing to start out with. This is a number of slides. I'm going to kind of go through these kind of quickly. We're trying to get voters' top priorities for a bond measure. If this bond passed, what do voters think are important to them to be funded? And you can see this page is the strongest page. I've collapsed the extremely very important to the right-hand side. So providing safe, clean drinking water is the highest at 51%, extremely important. 79, extremely very important. You can see on all of these, the red is under 10%, which we like to see. So these are all pretty important for voters. Upgrading student safety at 68. We tracked the meeting earthquake standards from 2015. That's up a little bit, not up on overall extremely very, but up on the intensity at 41%. Okay, that's the first slide. This is the strongest slide. These are the highest kind of perceptions and projects that voters think are important for the bond to address. The next one, we just kind of start walking down a little bit on the overall extremely very important. You can see improving handicap accessibility has jumped significantly from 2022 from 2015, from 24 to 37 on extremely. The rest of these are all kind of mid-range, pretty good. At the bottom, the solar panels is up from December of 2015 by 13, 14 points. All right, next slide. Now we're into below 65%. One of them is there. So these are improving irrigation systems, up on the intensity extremely, but not much higher on the extremely and very important. Upgrading security, lighting and fencing, improving campus safety, about the same. I thought that might be a little higher since safety is a big issue these days from 2015. And the one I want to highlight a little bit here is repairing the structural deterioration at Veterans Memorial Stadium. That's only at 57%, extremely very important, you know, down significantly from the ones on the first page, which were at 40%, 50%, extremely important. This is a little lower on the voters' priority. And then the last slide here on this question of what was important for voters to fund if a bond measure like this passed, all kind of 60 or below. You can see the extremely and very important are down for all of these. The building dorms and housing on or near the college campus, the second one is a little soft at only 52%. We're now jumping up into the 22% in the red, that not too important. The one at the very bottom, upgrading Veterans Memorial Stadium's track and athletic facilities, only 42, extremely very important. This is the lowest of all of the items we tested. 22%, not too important. Only 17%, extremely important.
John, it bears noting for our trustees that there is no order bias. Even these appear in the order that respondents ranked them. During the interviews themselves, they were randomly rotated to eliminate any bias in the order of the questions asked.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, so then we went into some positive statements about the bond. These are statements that I don't have them all flushed out here, but here are the results. We had a paragraph that talked about repairs, how old some of the schools are, what kind of repairs they needed in very specific detail. That the repair, this is a very convincing, somewhat convincing 74% said repairing, upgrading, improving, making safe, right? On the repair side was basically your top message on the positive side.
Yes, John, if I might just add here, the repairs message actually did lean in significantly on the Veterans Memorial Stadium, being 75 years old, the concrete structure and whatnot. And I think it is important to draw out for a board of trustees. In the past question series, you noticed that when the respondent was asked us to rank the order of importance on some very specific projects, it was lower in the list. Yet when we're elaborative on the narrative of the project, it actually elicited a very strong response from respondents, suggesting that information and being elaborative with information is very important to your respondents. John, back to you.
Okay, the next one was emergency uses. Again, we had a pretty substantial paragraph describing the emergency uses in case of a natural disaster. The Memorial Stadium will be critical to organize emergency response services in this place. So again, you can just see the number of positive messages we tested here.
Yes, student housing, just a reminder, this ends up being basically over 20 points stronger than when asked in the previous battery. So the takeaway that we would like the board to have from this particular slide is that your respondents prefer and respond well to storytelling. Storytelling is something that we know that the college does very well, and then under Dr. Munoz's leadership has been a flagship way of communicating with your community. So John, do you want
the more information they get on the details of how this might work, obviously are very important. All right, so then after the educational positive statements, you can see the initial vote on the left-hand side at 57. Again, it was only 50%, the definite probably yes. And now after those educational statements you just saw, we're up to 60%. But we're right at the 55%, right? With the definite yes and the probable yes. We need the 6 undecided leans to get us up to 60. We're rounding some of these off. So, and the no side came down a little bit. We're just barely right at that 55% with the liens, we get into the over 60. Then we did the same thing for some negative statements. We described 3 to the voters. Again, very convincing, somewhat convincing for voters to vote if they heard the following messages that opposed the bond. The top 2, the top one, no surprise to anybody, is taxes, right? We talked about inflation, gas, food prices, not the time to raise property taxes. And the other one was Measure LB, we called it, and that was in 2016, voters approved the $850 million bond measure for Long Beach City College to provide the funds needed to improve and upgrade the college, but they're back again asking for more money. So those 2 were the strongest reasons for voters to oppose. We try to give both sides here to give you a conservative estimate of your strength and if someone's going to oppose this. Okay, and you can see across the board here, initial vote with the liens was 57, went up to 60 after educational statements, and we took a serious drop after they heard those 3 negative statements that might come from opponents, dropped all the way down to 49. The no went up 13 points from the 27 to 40. And needless to say, we're below the 55%.
Thank you very much, John. In conclusion, we want to emphasize that it is clear from these results that the college is highly regarded. Your favorability ratings have remained consistent over time since our last survey for you in 2015. The work that the trustees and the executive team does is very meaningful to the community, but we are in a very challenging economic environment. So it is our best advice that proceeding this year is not a viable option. And for that reason alone, given the perfect storm of external circumstances, we would recommend foregoing consideration of 2022 under these external circumstances. With that, should I stop screen share, Alfred, so that
Thank
we
you.
might see faces? Thank you very much.
This is Alfred Freiholt for the record. President Ntuk, if I may just briefly to acknowledge the excellent work of Catherine Liu and her team and John Fairbanks as well. We greatly appreciated the expediency in which they engaged with the district to get the polling completed and get us the important information that is provided today. Today's session, from the standpoint of your consultant team, is informational only. We're not expecting the board at this juncture to make any formal decision at this meeting. We will be following up, President Ntuk and trustees, with other options as well. I end my remarks in the way that we started our discussion, which is that we would be committed to a data-driven process and go where the data would take us. And I think this is an important development and want to acknowledge the excellent work of our team. Thank you very much. And Catherine and John and others are available certainly for any questions that you might have during this important session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alfred and Catherine and John. I appreciate the presentation and very insightful. And I think I agree with the recommendation. I know it's a economically challenging time, but also highly uncertain with the Ukraine-Russian war and that potentially escalating and gasoline prices staying high for at least the foreseeable future, which impacts the whole supply chain of food and deliveries and things that everyday folks are struggling with. So disappointed and some of the results, but I think it's very informative that we take what our voters, our supporters think. I know student housing has been a priority, but we don't have the support for that right now. And I think this gives us some insight to evaluate options in the future and prepare, to look at all of our options in an informed way. So I'm really appreciative of the presentation tonight. Dr. Munoz, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Board President Ntuk. And I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Council Freiholt said. We do plan at the board retreat next month to bring back a more in-depth discussion about Veterans Stadium and potential options for the board to consider. So just wanted to give you the time frame for that discussion. And so we do anticipate another opportunity for the board to do a deeper dive on alternative options beyond the bond, or even maybe consider a future bond in 2024 or whatnot at the board retreat, so that folks on the Zoom know what the next step might look like.
Special meeting, we have our regular meeting next Wednesday, and then in August we have our two board retreat dates, I think August 1st and August 2nd. So within the next month here, we'll have additional opportunities to talk about this, but do you want to continue to open the floor to other board members for the 5-minute time? Anyone, any other questions or feedback?
Trustee Ntuk, sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand, but I don't know if it's my screen. It's not accepting my tap.
Go ahead, Trustee Malauulu, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. I'm having, I think it's the screen on my phone. I just wanted to say thank you for a very comprehensive study and the findings. And I respect the feedback that the voters provided. I initially thought that 51% was a good number, but after sitting through this presentation and after listening to the various comments, I really respect the importance of having it be above that 55% threshold. And I also really feel for the concerns that have been voiced in terms of regular day-to-day living expenses that have to be taken into consideration. And I agree, gas and food right now for so many families is such a priority. I think when times are better, and I'm sure they will be better, I think we can regroup and refocus on improving Veterans Stadium, which I'm sure everyone will appreciate. But you're right, this isn't the time for that. And I think the time right now is to support the families in our community who obviously have voiced concerns for more important priorities in their lives. So I respect that, I support it, and I'd like to thank everyone. You know, I don't want to exclude anyone, so I won't say any names, but from, you know, all components of this report and the research and the data, just thank you so much. I really appreciate that information.
All right. If no further questions or comments, again, thank you to the team. Thank you for all your work the last few weeks. We really appreciate your effort, your combined joint effort, and we will move on to our next agenda item. All right, thank you again, everyone.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Next, we're going to be moving into closed session, item 3.2. We have one item, public employee performance evaluation. But before that, we do have public comments on closed session items 3.1. Secretary Reese, do we have any public comments have come in for closed session agenda tonight?
I received no comments for closed session items. We did have somebody log on the Zoom that we didn't recognize. And I'm just wondering if they were here for public comment. The first name is Monica. Dario. Is there a way, is she still here, Dario?
Yes.
Closed session agenda tonight.
No comments for closed session items. We did have somebody log on the Zoom that we didn't recognize. And I'm just wondering if they were here for public comment. The first.
We got a little
So she's
feedback.
viewing the stream. Yes, she's viewing the live stream.
Yeah, so that would have been her opportunity to speak up if she needed public comment. I'm not sure how she got the Zoom link. We didn't recognize.
Oh, I think that's Alan now. That was.
Yes.
Public comment. The first.
Alan, you can turn off your YouTube video or the background audio. Can you hear us, Alan?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, hang on a second. Sorry. Thank you very much. I apologize. I'm sorry, Alan Gafford. I know that item is on to the next item, and I appreciate you moving in. My token expired, but I just want to say I appreciate the board understanding the intricacies of the bond measure right now, how it affects the possibly a city bond measure, $500 million bond measure for road taxes, and also the state bond measure. So I appreciate that the board is looking into this and looking forward to the community. And I wish you a lot of success when you make your determination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Glad we were able to get you connected here virtually. Appreciate your public comment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, with that, we are going to adjourn into a closed session for the board. It's 6:08 p.m. We will be back out an open session when we conclude our one topic. And with that, we'll take a recess to adjourn the closed session. All right, welcome back to, we're reconvening from our closed session. Item 3.4 is now 7 p.m. We have no reportable action out of our closed session to report out this evening. Moving to section 4, adjournment. The next meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held on July 20th, 2022. Closed session starting at 4:30 p.m., open session at 5:30 p.m. And with that, we'll be adjourned tonight at 7:01. And we'll see everybody next week for our regular meeting. Have a good night, everybody.